Welcome to the FX Masters program, lesson 13. Um, this one's going to be a little bit different. We're going to change a little bit the style of the examples that we'll be working on. We are still on the portion of the Maya Dynamics 1, meaning that we're still talking about soft bodies. We haven't yet moved to the... As soon as we hit fluids, then we'll consider going into this section. But what I mean by changing the examples, that we're going to be, instead of doing more of a prototyping section today, we'll just do something different, and let's go for something like this. I'm sure that 99.9% of you recognize this scene right here. This is from the episode 3 of the Star Wars films. I don't know, ever since I seen, when I saw this thing for the first time in the cinema, I always caught my eye. And I said, well, it's so beautiful. It's in such a big film, but yet it's so simple to do. And what I want with this class is to show you that, well, to show you this exactly, that you may see. I'm not saying that all the effects are easy, of course not. What I'm saying is that sometimes you will find something in a big film, something that you will admire and wonder for a while, and then it realizes that it's not that hard to do. And this is one of those examples. It's something visually interesting. It's beautiful, and I think it's it applies to commercials and things like that. And that's what I'm always searching for as far as examples for you guys. I'm always looking for ways for you to get, even though we're in the early stages of the course, to have enough tools and something in case a project like that comes your way. I don't want you to miss on chances to work on something cool and to make some money. So this could be interesting. I think if you manage to put this effect in Compet on a real life plate or something and show it. By the way, I haven't seen much on the group as far as material to share with this, in the social media. Well, I mean, I know that you guys are, doing your best and you all have life, but what I want to say is don't forget that that's an option, right? Don't forget that if you post something as a test and it looks cool, I will all definitely share it. So what I mean is that if what we saw in the previous lesson, plus what we're going to see in this one, I think we're getting to a point where there's enough, enough tools for you to start doing something as a freelancer, maybe. And I would love to hear that. I hope so. I hope that you get it soon. You're gonna start making some money. You guys are divided in I think it's about 25 different countries. So I think we can make a big difference quickly. As far as what's out there visually. So yeah, I mean, if you manage to come up with something like this and comp it, even in a situation like this one, I see this and I see a commercial for who knows, a cell phone company or whatever. This could be probably if you manage to get to you can even do it inside a cinema. Go to a cinema, take a picture. You don't have to track a live plate. You can just have a single background frame. But I see this inside a cinema, inside a theater, just something like this, something interesting. And you manage to put this material in and comp it. When I mean comp it, and this is not a compositing course. You know my motto already, right? We're specialists in what we do. Even if you just do it in Photoshop as a single frame, it will be interesting. Something recognizable from your own country, from your city, probably, and then just get it out there. I'll help you get it out there in social media. Who knows? Maybe someone will come knocking and ask for something for their brand, right? Because we know already that even the brand of a company can be placed somewhere in the theater is easy, but also on the geometry of the spheres. It could be interesting. I think it could be good money there. So yeah, well, let's see. So let's go for it. I mean, you will see that it's simple. You know that I'm not a big fan of rendering things in this course and talking about rendering, but in this, I'm going to make an exception and we're going to talk a little bit about it. Not too much. I'm not going to go too deep into it. But definitely we're going to get a render out of this thing. So there we go. I forgot to tell you, this is the second lesson I record from Mexico, so let's see how it goes. I have a lot of hopes in here. This specific week, which is today is October 20th. On the 23rd, Sunday, ends the 7 in 7 promotion. Remember that we said if we can get this number down to 0 by the weekend, by Sunday, the October 23rd, then I'll give away my iPhone. Remember that was a bit of a test and a challenge. So let's see. It started a bit, definitely very slow the week, but we'll see if it picks up. There's still a chance, so you know. All right, let's go for it. Soft bodies, and we're gonna keep this image around. There are videos of this on YouTube, a whole bunch of them. I don't care. I'm just gonna focus on the still frame first. Try to come up with something that looks like this, and then see how it goes. So I'm going to show you the steps that I will do if this was coming my way. If someone tells me, you know, Luis, I have a project for you. You remember the Star Wars Episode 3, Water Spheres in the theater? Yeah, I do. Well, I want you to do something like it for my brand. Okay, fine. Sure. So I'm going to show you the steps that I will take in order to get to this result as fast as possible, as cheap as possible. Remember that when you're freelancing, and I think we're getting to a point, we haven't done any live sessions on the virtual classroom yet, just because I'm waiting to have a bit more people in the group. It's getting bigger, but it's only like 5 or 10 of you who participate. The rest are just dead silent in the group. I don't know if you're watching this. I don't know if you like it. If you don't like it, you don't say anything at all. So I wouldn't want that. I want the live sessions to be definitely very active. So if the case is that only 10% of the students are participating in comments or even saying hello, then I think I need to wait to have more people to get a proper session. What I'm trying to say with this is on those live sessions is where we're going to be talking about finding jobs and my personal story, which I don't mean to brag or anything, but I find it, I think I've seen the reaction from people every time I show myself in an auditorium or something and tell it, is that people find it inspiring. So and find it useful. There's a lot of information there. So we'll wait for that. But to talk about freelancing and rates and things like that. But what I'm trying to say is that you need to come up with a way. You're charging, usually when you're freelancing, you charge daily, or at least you quote it that way. You will quote this effect on a daily rate. You may give the client, or your client may ask for a full rate for the entire thing. That's fine, but you have to yourself divide it in days. So you need to come up with a way to do this quickly. In all honesty, to be able to charge the same amount of time. For example, you might do it in a day, but you charge 5 days. To take into account the use of your computer, your software, any changes that the client may make, that they will make it, even if it's beautiful in the first try. So you need to try to accommodate for that in order not to lose money, because if you quote for 5 and you take 15, then you're done. That's how you start losing money doing something that you shouldn't. So these are my steps. There are many ways to get to an effect, to the end of the path. You will choose whatever you want. I'm just giving you this, as a way that if I do it, then most likely you will as well, given that I've done this for a long time. So what I will focus is on the main sphere right here, because all of them, the others, are going to be duplicates of this one. So we need to make sure that the first one, the big one, the center stage one, is done the right way. And then we're going to take a look at these ribbons that we have here. And then we're going to do a test render. Some of you are lighters by trade, and you're getting into effects, then you will do much better work than me. If I was doing this in production, I wouldn't even touch the lighting. I would just take the lighting from the lighter that he will tell me, because he already lit, for example, the stadium or the auditorium. I will take his lights, bring them into my scene, test it, get rid of some of them, because that's usually the case. Make sure that in a situation like this, okay, this being a sphere made of gel or water, or sometimes it could be glass, what matters the most, and what pretty much only matters, is what you're reflecting, because these are very reflective surfaces, as you can see. You can see some greens in here. You can see people reflected, all right? Just some sort of environment that we're looking at in here. That's what you can see reflected on a drop of water, or on a water surface in any case, or glass. right? So that's what's going to matter. So in a situation in production, if I were working on Star Wars and doing this thing, I wouldn't have to light it. I would just go, hey, you guy, the lighter, can I please get your environment? That environment went through a long process of approvals and testing and changes to make it work. Most likely, okay, in a studio environment, then you will probably give them nothing. Actually, you probably wouldn't give them anything, because if I think about this, I will say, well, the layout department or the previous department will give him the stadium. It will give him just a round sphere with no deformation, made of glass. And what happens? Well, we have a shading department, and someone there will have a shader made specially for this. Or if it's a big studio that already done this kind of stuff before, I don't mean big water deforming spheres, but I mean reflective surfaces, which they all have done it. They have a shade already working, so they will give the lighter the stadium. They will give him a sphere, static sphere, a shader to try, and then he will start testing environments, and he will work in conjunction with the texture department in order to get the best looking environment map to be reflected in the sphere. So what I'm trying to say with all these things is that as an effects artist, you don't have to worry about any of this. You will just ask for it. What will Lewis ask? Well, I will ask for the environment, meaning I will ask for the stadium just to have it, not because it has anything to do with my simulation at all. I will simulate these things on their own, but I need it, of course, for size scaling. Usually, when you get the stadium, you get the previous scene, okay? But by previous, I mean pre-visualization, okay? So the initial stages where everything is gray, where the director is testing the cameras and the positions of things. You will get that scene. So that scene will contain a rough version of the stadium. It will get the positioning of each sphere, because that's definitely needed. So the layout department is the one who's going to be placing the spheres in the right position to get the framing that the director wants. So you can see that the creativity just starts going into the trash right away for us, because we're told what's going to reflect. We're told where the spheres are placed, how many of them, how big they are. All we need to do is deform them and do the ribbons. That's it. And that's the truth. And that's actually, it's not a bad thing. It's actually, you should be happy about it, because the more decisions like that you get rid of, the faster you can finish it. Because then all you have to do is just give deformation to these things, and you'll see that it's not really that hard. So yeah, if you're working as a freelancer, then it's different. It's a different story. You have to come up with all these things. And we'll talk about what to ask and what not to ask. Let's say that this is what the client is asking me, this frame right here. Okay, fine. Let's go ahead and try. Of course, I'm just giving you a heads up and a bit of a warning at the beginning. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be the same thing. First of all, I'm going to do this in about an hour. And second of all, it's just myself. I have to teach you these things in an hour. You guys will go further into this. So I'm not going to worry about crowds and things. I just need to get the spheres looking good, the form in the right position. That's all I'm going to care for. So, all right. And then you can go ahead with time at home, explore it, and make it even better. I'm going to give you all the tools you need to get this thing going and looking good. That being said, we're going to continue talking about soft bodies in this class. As you can see in the example, is a sphere. Most of you will try to go right away and say, well, I'm going to make a soft body sphere. I'm going to make a sphere. And make it soft. But I'm going to give you a bit of an advice and a bit of a trick. Remember that the deformation that you get on the geometry, it will look better if the topology helps you, right? So when you're modeling a character, for example, then you will have to follow some guidelines as a modeler in order to get the topology and the polygons to look squares or whatever. You know, that's something that a modeler will tell you with more detail and better than me. What I'm trying to say is you need to follow some rules, and the topology has to help you, and it has to be made in a way that it will deform better once rigor comes in and puts joints, or once I come in and try to deform it with dynamics. So if you make a sphere right off the bat and try to deform it, then well, you will get this kind of topology, right? So usually what I do is instead of using a sphere right away, I use a cube. I'm going to scale the cube to fit the sphere inside. I use a cube, and then I go and smooth that mesh. So right here. You say, well, yeah, that doesn't look right. Yeah, it doesn't, but if I add more detail, you see the topology? These are quads. There are quads everywhere. And this is not. So if I grab them both, you can see the difference, right? So this one is, it has triangles in this section here. This part is not going to deform right. And as you can see on our example, these are perfect spheres. You don't see seams or pointy edges anywhere. That's what we're looking for. You want to have a smooth reflection on this. On my example, I'm sure you see the promotional material. I usually do the promotional material either when I finish preparing a class or when I finish recording a class. This one was released when I finished preparing these things. And you saw in my version there's a lot more ripples around it. You know what I do in class. You know that I force the effects, I push them further to the point where you need them in order for you to see what it could be if you go too far, or what it can do, right? So these are smoother versions. But my point is that there's no pointy edges, there's no things. With the deformation of a sphere, like this one, you definitely get some weird stuff. You will need to have, as much as you can, topology like this. And because you will say, well, Luis, but this is a perfect sphere as far as I can see, or as perfect as it can be. This looks weird, looks squished. Yeah, you're right. That's true. But it doesn't really matter because we're going to, well, first of all, we need to add more detail to this. And that's going to make it a bit more round. And also, we're going to deform it. So it doesn't matter. You can have this one and deform it, and have this one deform it. It might, it might have the same kind of silhouette. This one has the issue of the topology, so I'm not going to go with that one. So that's out. This guy here, I'm going to work in the center. Doesn't have to, doesn't matter. What I'm going to do is deform one of them, make it look beautiful, and then bring it into the scene. So first thing you need to decide, or you need to know, or anticipate for. Remember my motto, right? We anticipate, we expect the worst, always. What can my client change? Depends. If we're working on freelancing, the first thing you need to do, man, is get sign approval from him as far as the positioning of these things and the scale of it. The first thing you need to do, sign. Well, I mean, as sign as it can be. I don't know. I don't mean to tell you all the details or how the law works in your country, but get the word, man-to-man word from your client that he won't move these things, and explain the risk of moving them, and explain or put some sort of penalty in money-wise, a fee. If you change, I'll give you X amount of changes, and if you change more than this, then you have to pay me this much money, to try to stop him from changing his mind. Get him to approve this thing with static spheres. Simple. These are what, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spheres in this case. There's a lot of them. Actually, there's a lot of them. So make 7 normal Maya spheres, anything, put them in place, work with him in that, get him happy. Explain to him that they're going to just deform a little. They're not going to move, or they're not going to move around, so whatever he approves, that's the layout he wants. Once you get that, then he will tell you how close these things are going to be to the camera. That's always what we need to find out, right? We need to know how close this thing is going to be. Because depending on how close it's going to be, it's going to be how many polygons, how many CVs are going to need in this thing to make it look cool. For the sake of the class, for the sake of the speed of the class, because we're going to have some of them in the scene, I'm going to stick to what I have right here. But in your case, you may need to go even higher. Maya will eventually complain, like this. If I ask for 7, which I believe I did, Maya's telling me division 7 is way too high. Are you sure? He can do it. You can just make your computer very slow, blah, blah, blah. And then you have to know if Maya's telling you this, Maya knows why. And if you need 7 of them, even worse. So, no, just stay at 1. Well, Maya will bring you back, and then you pick whatever level. I think I was at 5. And that's what I'm going to stay at 5. Okay, so here's my sphere. Let's go ahead and start. As far as the scaling of this thing goes, let's say that you already got your approval. Your client say, okay, Luis, that's the position. That's it. I promise you I'm not going to change it. And if I want to change it, it's too expensive, so I won't. Okay, good. Between you and I, you guys are my students or my friends. Between you and I, it's not the end of the world if he moves it. You're not going to die, or you're not going to spend months trying to fix it. Cross your fingers that, that if you make them a bit closer to the camera, they will still hold up. If not, then you might need to replace 1 or 2. I don't think it's going to move all of them. If it changes and makes another shot where the camera just flies through them or something, then you have to charge it as a separate job. So in this case, it's not the end of the world, but you have to make it sound like it is. Not that it's, for you very complicated. You should keep your cool and maintain your, your posture, and just explain to him, oh, it costs money. That's it, just money. If you have the money, then I'm fine. I'll do it again. But not for free. Don't do the big mistake that's what bankrupts some studios, right? Unlimited changes. Hell no. No way. No unlimited change. You get X amount of changes agreed upon before you begin this thing. Those are your terms. And, any changes after that, you charge. So anyway, to get the scale of this thing, what I will do is just make myself, or bring in here, why not, bring the stadium, So let's do something, let me just think, what is the easiest way? I have a stadium. I'm not going to upload it yet because that's for a different class, and I don't want any confusion. But let me just do it the other way. I'll bring it just for myself. Once we do the other, you can just do a rough mock-up of what it's going to be as far as the size. Let me just think. Let me just bring it. In my case, because it's faster that way. You can just do yourself a rough, simple geometry of a stadium, or if you have a stadium, then fine, a theater, whatever. Let me just look for it here. You're going to get this model once we get to the point of the case studies of this course. But not yet, so I don't want to confuse people. Let me just look for it for a minute. And it's right here, okay. And I get a stadium. Start right here. So I'm going to bring this guy. That's normal. All right. Yeah, so I get this. We're going to use this for the Day Dare Stood Still class. So first of all, I'm just going to put a Lambert material because this is green because it has some mental ray materials that are no longer supported by Maya 2017. So I put myself a little simple here. I'm going to get rid of the camera and clean up. Let's say that you do that. Let's say that you buy the stadium and, usually get rid of things that no one's going to see. No one's going to look at this. No one's going to look at this. The lights is up to you, but I don't need them. Let me get rid of that as well. Actually, you can see there's some little lights. So clean up as much as possible. I want to show you the steps, and I hope you don't find it boring. Maybe 1 or 2 of you will, but I want to show you the steps because this is what you're going to end up doing yourself. And remember, this course is meant to be a preparation on all aspects of the production. It's not only show you how to move particles around. It's going to show you how to work and how to live your life as an effects artist. At least how I do it. And so far I haven't, suffered the pains of most people. Yes, I worked long hours because, that's what the project requires. But I haven't done it because I'm failing or I'm doing things the wrong way. So I just want to give you my take on what it will be like to live like this, to make a living out of this. And this is what I would do. I will clean this up because I know then my camera is not gonna see these things. And then will be more stuff to clean. But let's say that I'm just gonna get rid of these things as well. And I have a much lighter version. This is not really heavy as a model. It has some stuff under here, but I think we can get rid of some of these things as well. Look, you see? There's lots of stuff. Okay. There we go. Well, there's some sort of goalkeeper's thing that say that that's not going to be there for the shot. Just to have a scaling of, what it will be like. First thing, I'm going to make a camera and just, we work for what the camera can see. And I think it's always best to get the camera right away. That's what you will get from your client, or at least you will get it approved right away. So I'm going to move. I'm going to make a camera. Let me look through it and find some sort of angle similar to what we're doing, to what we have in the sample, right? So they seem to be sitting in some sort of main VIP balcony looking thing. So what I did on my testing is something like that. So I just place them. Let's say you're on a view like this, right? You can zoom in a little bit. You can adjust it, but again, it's best to get this thing sorted as soon as possible. So let's say that we are working like this. They're sitting there. I think they're closer. Let me just check. Right, so there's some sort of balcony like that. I think it's similar. That's good. Good for me. So let's say that this camera is approved by the client. I'm going to select my camera and just keyframe it. Translations and rotations right there, as you can see. How do I keyframe that quickly? I hit Shift W and Shift E. You should know that from the intro to Maya for Effects. But Shift W keyframes translation, Shift E translates rotations. So I have my camera 1, which is my render camera, set up in the right position. This is what the camera can see. I'm happy with it. And I have something to work on. So I go back to my perspective. And all I have to do is make this look cool in the right position. So let's see. You see how big the sphere is compared to what I have on my camera. So let's go back to it. There we go. Place this guy where it's supposed to be. You can see that it's big enough. I have to push it further in Z. Actually, it could be too big, which is good. Back again to the reference. So they see the bottom edge and they eat a little bit of the top edge. And I can see that it's going through the bottom here of my... So if I move, let's just get my resolution scale. Let's get a render resolution for this, which is HD, full HD. Okay, so if I move this guy up, I can see the bottom and I eat a bit of the top. I find it a little bit big. I'm going to put this to 25. Okay, now it's a bit... Well, I can bring it closer probably. There we go. Anyway, let's check this on 3D and let's see where it stays, where it lives in regards of everything else. Perfect, man. It's dead center in the stadium. If I had a situation, I think if I were to organize an event like this, I will have it right in the center. So I think it's fine. I think it looks good. Once again, let's double check that on my camera 1. I like it. I think it's good. All right, cool. So that's the one I'm going to focus on. I'm going to put my stadium on a layer. I don't know if it's already there. No. Let me delete any layers that are not being used. I'm going to put the stadium on a layer because I really don't want to see that right now. I don't want to think about it. So let me open my outliner. This sidewalk, I don't need it. All right. And okay, so I'm going to grab the stadium. This slide I don't need. These two things. I'm going to group them. And I'm going to put them on their own layer. So I can use this one right here. Add selected objects, and I'm going to call something different. Done, and hide. All I care for at the moment is camera 1, which is my render camera. And if you want to be very professional about it, you can just put render cam. This one is going to be called main sphere. No, spelled wrong. All right, main sphere. Remember, the naming is always important. Okay, so I get my main sphere in the right position with the right scaling. What I'm going to do is delete history and freeze transformations. As soon as I delete history, I can no longer, well, I could smooth it afterwards, right? But I don't have access to this anymore, so I made my decision. I'm happy with this. So let's go ahead and edit, delete by type history, and modify freeze transforms, and that's it. Let's double check it with the camera and make sure that, yep, everything is fine. Move it a little bit further down. There we go. We just double check it once again. Yeah, I think it's good. It's not going through the ground. All right, we're fine. Cool, so this sphere is good to go. Actually, I need to modify freeze transformations one more time because I moved it a little bit, and there we go. Okay, let's save the scene. This is going to be Effects Master lesson 13. There we go. Excellent. So let's make this thing a soft body. Start to get deformations right away. You could do two things, right? One of two things. You could deform it first, get your simulation working, and then render it. Or you can render, get a look on the static version of this, and then simulate it. Well, it's up to you. Either way works. I mean, if you were to talk about rendering at the moment with something simple, I think it's not such a bad idea, actually, to probably get some sort of basic render going, just to see what it reflects and what it looks like. So what I told you before is that you need to the most important thing for a scene like this is what you're going to be reflecting. So Arnold, which is the render that we're going to be using, first of all, I need to load it because for some reason it got unloaded. So let's load Arnold again. I miss Mentor Ray, I gotta be honest with you. Probably because it's the one I know how to use better, but that's all right. That's the future. Okay, good. Arnold is loaded. So in Arnold, I'm gonna make an environment. So it's gonna be a sky dome. That makes just a big sphere. Let me show you, around your object, around your scene actually. And this is what you're going to be reflecting. Okay, so there we go. There it is. There we go. I don't think you can move these things around. No. As far as I know, it's stuck right there. And you get a whole bunch of settings. Again, this is not a rendering course. I will show you what I would do, and probably you'll be like, well, Luis, I think it's best if you do this or you do that. And yeah, it's totally fine. I will do two things. I will have two environments. One of them will be the one that the sphere is going to be reflecting. So I can manipulate the reflections a little bit different than for the whole stadium. I don't think that's too far-fetched because this stadium is not, first of all, it's not reflective. This is all matte materials. It's going to be lit differently. If you have an environment for it, it's just to be, get a little bit of more natural look and fill in some of the dark shadows. But the main image, the most important part here, where the visual focus is on the big spheres. So they're going to have a different type of image. So something a little bit different. So if I use one environment to light the whole thing up, you're going to have a hard time doing this. It's easier to have both. So I'm going to call this environment, okay, this is the one for, let's say, for the sphere. So it's a sky dome, light, sphere. Well, it is a sphere, but I know what I mean. So I mean that I'm going to be lighting the main spheres with this. And how do I specify that I want them to light just that? Well, remember that you have the light linker. If you don't know this, go and watch Intro to Maya for Effects. Igor explains these things very nicely. But there's a window here called Light Linker. It works the same way as the dynamic relationships. You can connect and disconnect lights from objects. And I'm going to do it light centric, meaning that the light is going to be on the left side. It's easier to select it that way. I'm going to select my light, and you can see that it's lighting everything in the scene. That's the default behavior. That's fine. Actually, I don't want the stadium. I just want the sphere. That's it. That's how you connect those two together. So the stadium at the moment is not going to be visible, and I don't care for it yet. If you were to look through your camera and do a quick test render, just open in here, make sure that we're going to render with Arnold, and make sure that you render through the render camera. You will get just this, just a basic white sphere. Sorry, that's just, okay, there we go. You get a white sphere. Perfect, that's what I want. At least it renders. That's usually what we say. In every film, and every time they change the render engine in the company that we work on, or every time we move from one company to another, one studio to another, the first thing you need to try to get is some sort of geometry rendered. And that's why I don't focus on rendering in these courses. Because you will see when your time comes, that when you go from example to MPC, then you get your first day to MPC, they give you a tour, they sit you down, you meet your co-workers, and the first thing they're going to give you is a wiki page, which I call. And it's an internal manual that they have, and you have to follow a recipe and go step by step, just like a little kid, just like you're learning a course for the first time. A very boring course, because it's done by programmers, or if they're big enough, they have a department that makes tutorials, and they're horrible, man. And it's not on video. Sometimes you just have to read pages and pages of stuff just to get a simple sphere rendered. You have to read all the steps. You have to export it from Maya into their through their pipeline and get it rendered. And it takes sometimes a day to get something out. And you have to learn it all over again, because every company has a different way of doing stuff. So that's why I don't focus on rendering in these courses. It's pointless. You will have to relearn everything every time you go to a different studio. And that's I'm just saying this because I just remember when I just said it, because that's usually what we say. Hey, at least it renders. That's you will see, man. I promise you that. You will remember you remember me when that happens to you. At least it renders. That's always what we say. Oh, look, finally I got a sphere. It works. Okay, now it can begin working. So yeah, we have a sphere here. Nothing special. Again, to learn about shaders, lights, and all that, Intro to Maya for Effects, that's your course. I myself am going to add here a different shader to this thing. There's a lot of them here because they come with my stadium, so don't worry about it. I'm going to get rid of the stuff that I don't need just because it's too, cluttered in my workspace and I don't like it. So I'm going to get rid of these things. Those are my old mentor ray nodes. I don't need that, or this, or that. None of that. What's that? No, I don't need that either. Okay. I got Lambert 1, Lambert 2, which is fine. Lambert 2 is the one I put on the stadium. Lambert 1 is the default, particle cloud, and shader glow. That's just basic. I like it. I'm going to save my scene. And I'm going to make an Arnold shader. And I'm going to be using the standard regular one that they have, which is called the AI standard. That's usually how everything begins in Arnold. That's like the basic shader that has ability to do many things. So the AI standard is the one I'm going to drop into my sphere. If you want, because it's a quick render, it takes 10 seconds, which is, there you go. Now it looks white. Nothing special. Okay, perfect. Because we're doing test renders and it's not really need to go that far, in resolution. I'm going to lower. First of all, I'm going to set my render camera and I'm going to go to half HD because it's faster. All right, so I get a white sphere. That's good. To make this look like glass, then you can do a few changes in here. I will advise you to learn a little bit about it. So if you just say here, how to render glass in Arnold for Maya. Guess what? That's what I did that day. When I was preparing this class. I don't mean to say that I know everything. I don't know about these things. That's why I don't really mess with those, because I explained to you why. We don't like things in effects. Not like this, right? So we don't go that far. So here you can read about it. You know, the importance of reading. Modeling the glass in the liquid. That's not what I care. I want to render the glass in the liquid. Let me just find it. Shading the glass in the liquid. That's what I want. And here you get instructions on what to do. It's very simple. You have to do just this. So set the diffuse weight to 0. The diffuse, just to explain a few things, okay? I don't mean to be an asshole and just don't talk anything about rendering, right? We will be learning things as an effects artist as we go through our career. I learned everything on my own. I didn't go to college for this or anything like that. So I had to learn many things on my own, and I learned them by experimenting. So it's simple. Diffuse is just color. Think of it as color. And a reflected object, glass or water for that matter, it doesn't really have color. The color that comes through, you can see in the render, is based on reflections and refractions. So what is a reflection? Well, the reflection is a mirror, for example. So it's what the light bounces off the surface and it comes back out. That's a reflection. A refraction is the light coming through an object, okay, looking what is in the environment, and then it's what you can see inside, all right? So it's not the opposite of a reflection, but reflection, think of it on the surface. Refractions, think of it as inside the surface. So there's a few aspects that you need to know. There is subsurface scattering, right? So it's the light that it comes through, it will bounce inside and it will take a color. That's usually when we do water, oceans and things like that. That deep blue that you get, or green, or whatever tone of color, it will come for subsurface scattering. That's also what you get on the skin. That's what makes the skin look a particular color. Is what layers of color are underneath that you'll be looking at. To render water and to render glass is almost the same thing. Rendering water or rendering glass is the same. It's just one item that changes, which is how much light is refracted, or the index of refraction, which is called, which should be here. There you go. Index of refraction. There's actually a table online that you can find here. So you can put index of refraction table, and Wikipedia or anybody here, those physics, will tell you different index of refraction. This is too small, man. I don't like it. Give me something bigger. Well, you kind of see it. Air is one, in different materials. Water, it's not here, but you get a diamond. And that's how much light is refracted on a surface. Let me just, well, here you got a big one. There you go. That's massive. So if you have to render any of those objects, depending on what they're made of, then you can get different index of refraction. Usually what you care for is water. And this is awesome because it has water at different temperatures. Water made gas, water at 100 degrees. There we go. So you can see that the water index of refraction is 1.33. If you find glass, I love this list. This is awesome. Glass is 1.51. And this is basically what it tells here. Index of refraction of glass is 1.5. So this is a physics thing. You can actually find the number, put it on the shader, and this being an awesome, physically based render and all that, it will use it correctly. So it's not too crazy to ask your client what's the material of the sphere. Remember what I said at the beginning of the course, and I said in every class. What matters is the final product. The image will look good. If it tells you in this planet that sphere is made of hydrogen, and then you go to your list and you find hydrogen, and you can see the hydrogen in gas or in liquid is 1.09, and you put that number, but doesn't look good, doesn't mean that you have to stick to that number. You can just tell them as a fun fact, or as something to put in the bonus features or something. You know what? We're so correct that we're using index of refraction values based on a physics website, which is very specific, and this is definitely how hydrogen will look. You could say that for fun, but if it doesn't look right, by all means, use any number. I'm just showing you this to explain how it works. So the index of refraction is the main element on this. This is how you make something look like water or look like milk. Okay? You will see the effect right now in a second. So what I mean is diffuse is color. So basically this surface has no color of its own. It will be based on the reflection and the refraction. So that's what we get the weight of it, which is just the main, let's think of it as a magnitude from a field. Same thing, you get that to 0 because you don't want any color in here. So it goes to black. That's normal. Then it tells you the specular weight is 1. Specular is highlights. Okay, all these highlights that you have here. So the shader, what they're telling you, they're suggesting Solid Angle is the people who makes Arnold. So what Solid Angle, the makers of the render engine, are telling you to bump up the specular weight all the way to 100%. So you get all the little glints and beautiful specular highlights, okay, highlights. That's usually how we call it. You see, it starts to come up naturally. So specular highlights is what we call it. All we call it specular when you're in production. Or if you're in a rush or something, you call it spec. So what's your spec settings? They will tell you. So at least you know. Specs are for specular. And specular are highlights. Usually, in meetings, on dailies and stuff like that, we don't have time to, or people, they say so many times that they get used to saying spec. So you have to bump up the spec. At least you don't go to your desk and figure out what the hell is a spec, because a spec could be many things. So when you're talking about lighting and people say spec, think of it of specular and specular highlights in that matter. So specular highlights all the way to 100%. So let's find them in here. Specular, weight, 100. You can see that the shader kind of tells you, okay, this thing is going to pick up highlights. Remember that it's going to pick them up from the image or from lights that you are having in the scene. So specular highlights to 1. Fresnel, use IOR. So you're basically telling the Fresnel is, well, you have to read better about it. But basically what it's telling you here is to use the index of refraction. So we're going to be using a specific number. So you got to go down here and look for down, internal reflections, refractions. There we go. On refractions, you have to use Fresnel, use IOR. That's fine. And then you have to specify an index of refraction. He's doing glass. If we want to do water, we can try an index of refraction based on this table. Take the temperature, but it'll be almost the same thing. So basically 1.33, let's say. So index of refraction 1.33. That's going to be water. I don't think they give you anything else, but refraction weight 100%. So refraction weight 100%. Done. So if you do these changes and you keep the weight to 0, then there's no refractions being calculated. And you basically do want them. So there you go. Okay. That's all you need to do. You see what I mean? Subsurface scattering. If you wanted to color this thing, the deeper you get into the sphere, give it a different color, you might. In this case, actually, you don't want it because you want to see through. You want to see through the sphere a distorted version of what's behind it. A bit cloudy, yeah. It's normal. Otherwise, you wouldn't see anything. I mean, you wouldn't see any reflections or the ripples if you just see through it, right? It would be just transparent. But here you can kind of see like a distorted version. So there we go. That's all the Solid Angle advises us to do. If you hit render right now, I'm just going to save it. If you hit render right away, you won't see much of a difference. Right? So just a simple, same look, because there's still nothing to reflect or to refract. So there we go. I'm not even going to finish the render. So alpha channel is solid. And RGB is the same regular color. Here's your material. The sphere goes, it looks like this. It's just a display thing. What's the most important part is what's coming now. We need to put an image into this. It's not any image. You're not going to go in Google and just download a picture of, no. These are usually called high dynamic range images, or HDRIs. There are websites that offer them for free. So you can go in here. We don't need this anymore. You can say free HDRI. and it will give you, did I hit enter? There we go. There's some websites that have some images for you to try on. Free HDRI maps, okay, you can go in and find whatever you like. This being the most important part, you need to put some time into this and locate an image that has the necessary color and detail. And what you will do is just look at this, and the logic will tell you, well, this is reflecting and refracting the environment, the stadium. And yeah, in a real scenario, yes, that's what would happen. But you will be amazed by, a lot. Sometimes we put image maps or reflection that have nothing to do with the environment. Of course, we're not going to put an image with yellow or some color that is not here. We pick something that has the same tone, but as long as it's interesting, it could be the image of a kitchen, it could be an image of lights of a parking lot, or who knows what. As long as it has some interesting results, some interesting colors and shapes that that you've been reflecting. I see green, for example, here. I don't know if there's green in here. I see green down here, so there might be something green somewhere, maybe, but I don't see it in this frame. So this could be an image of something else. This could be a green screen for some other thing. So don't worry about it. In most cases, that's not your call. This image will be pre-selected for you. If you're freelancing, then, well, yeah, you find something. You can go in and explore these things. I bought some already a long time ago because I use them a lot in my project, in my day-to-day. So I do have some. Let me just see. I have my HDRI folders. You see, so I bought a lot of textures and a lot of stuff from these guys. Dosh is a very cool company, and they sell bundles. So this is interesting. So I have radiant skies. I have a lot of stuff here. Some of them, there's a PDF. This is what I wanted. This is interesting because, if you buy them, my opinion on piracy and all, I hate it. I'm completely 100% against it. I understand some people that have less resources. Okay, I bought this because I work with these things and I need to use them for my freelancing and all that. My point is, if you buy them, they come with this nice little neat guide that you don't have to go scroll one by one. You can just get them by name. So that's pretty cool. And look for something that has tones, and these are skies. Are just very simple. This will come with water reflectivity here. This one has green and blue and purple. This could work. We could try this one first. So it's called Rat Sky 096. We just need to locate it. So what I'm going to do is grab my sphere, map on the color of the sphere, okay? And this is what's going to drive the reflection. This is what you're going to see in here. So on the color, I'm going to map a file in order for me to find on my folder, which is called, let me just go back and back and back, HDRI, Dosh, and these are the Radiant Sky, I believe it's called, and 96, so it should be probably here. And yeah, actually 96. Let's just double check the name. Where is it? Here you go. So Red Sky 96 doesn't say if it's a spherical or not, because this bundle comes with the SX images. You see, those are like spherical maps. But anyway, I wanted to see 96, which is this one. Let's make sure that it matches. Yeah, it matches what I have on my PDF. It's cool because it saves you a lot of time browsing through the images. If I were to go one by one in here, it takes a while because they're very heavy, you see? 33 megs HDR file. This is a high-res map. We can try it. Let's load it. It takes a minute to load because it's a heavy picture. You will see it reflected. Don't worry, this won't come through the render. Save it, always. When you hit render, the first thing is going to happen, Arnold is going to take this picture, is going to change it, save it as a different format, and use that for the render. So let's see. You see, it's converting the picture, which is heavy, converting this thing from HDR file to that TEX file, I believe, or TX file. That's the format that they use. The heavier your image, the longer it will take. So it did the conversion. Now it goes and does the render. So let's see, and there we go. All right, so you can see now that you have you're lighting the sphere based on the image in the background. That's bread and butter for when you're doing water simulations. Okay, fine, I get that. That's pretty much it. There you go, done. It took 28 seconds because he had to do the conversion. Next time you do it, you can check it. It should take a lot less because it goes directly to render. There we go. So it should take a little bit less time. These things take time. You have to be patient. Rendering reflective surfaces is always expensive. And if you have refractions, a lot more expensive. And if you have subsurface, add more time to it. That's just how it works. So these things, you have to account for these things in your bidding as well. Well, actually, it only took 30 seconds. Oh God, what the hell? Okay. Anyway, my point is that you have it right here. I can see that it's solid. Let's just double check our shader and make sure that we did everything that solid angle advised. Dynamics weight and the color is fine. The specular weight is to 100. That's fine. We have on the reflections, we didn't put anything. On the refractions, we have 100% with an index of refraction of 1.3. Okay, so I think we're fine. There's nothing behind. So we need to, test it. What happens if we put something behind it? Anyway, let's just double read this thing. Diffuse weight to 0, specular weight to 1, enable Fresnel, we did it. Index of refraction, we did it, and increase the refraction weight to 1. Okay, so that's what we did. This is water, this is milk. Well, that's pretty much it. That's all we need in here. If you want to try the environment, if you place it, okay, it should come black. I'm going to lower the resolution of these things to get faster renders. The environment should come out black, so let's see. Why do I say that? Because we disconnected the image from the background, so you get, the background doesn't have any light, so we need to light that as well. So let's see, and that's correct, it comes out black. Okay, I'm not going to continue. That's what I wanted to see. Alpha channel is your best friend, so it tells you that there's definitely an environment behind it, which is good. So let's light the environment. You can light it with a different map as well, with an environment map if you want. It's usually faster if you're just testing stuff, right? So I'm going to make another sky dome. That one I'm going to leave it white as it comes, regular one. And I'm going to make sure that I'm not lighting the sphere with that one. So window, rendering editors, no, sorry, relationships, light linking, light centric. So I'm going to take my sky dome, the second one, and I'm going to disconnect it from the sphere so it lights everything else. I'm disconnecting this from the shader that I have applied on the sphere. And it's just to light the background. So now we can put the sphere on a different layer. Okay, I'm going to hide it. I'm going to focus on the environment now. Hit render. It's okay that it comes out noisy because that's just a low resolution, low samples on your render. Then you can just bump it up later. But for the sake of testing, I think this is fine. So you can see that a white image will do a trick. You could put in a picture yourself if you wanted of something. That's fine. It depends on how much time you have and how far you want to push this thing. Okay, so that's good. It rendered in 29 seconds as well, but at least it renders. If you want to bump up the resolution a little bit, I believe we can make this. Okay, it's got just to differentiate both. This is the one for the set. At the bottom here, you get volume samples, and it's set to 2. If you bump it up to 3, you just save this, hit render. So you get a bit less noise. We're going to compare those two in a minute. Courses that have rendering involved, they have long silences and gaps, or people pause the video and then continue. But when this thing starts to get more complicated, you will have to wait more and more time. So right now, I think I can find things to say to fill in the gaps, useful things to say. All right, so this took a bit, actually, no, it looks just the same. In this case, not really there. We can add more detail later. We can go to the render settings as well, and then you get your own render in here, and you can bump up samples as well in here. But for now, I think for what we're testing, and we want things to work faster, we have no motion blur activated, Everything is just calm at the moment. We're going to keep it that way. At least we get background showing up, separate from a... If you want to use an image, then by all means, go for it. We can open, again, our PDF, which is right here. And you can pick something similar to the lights of the stadium here. Let's just go and look. So there's a bit of a purplish, bluish kind of looking thing. I want to show you something different. I want to try another image, just so you can see what I mean. I have others here. They come from the free website. That could be interesting. You see this? It could be an interesting reflection on the main sphere. We'll see that later when we get to that. You will say, well, yeah, it doesn't match the environment, but it has a lot of cool stuff. What I look for in an image, right, is just the bright points. All these little lights in here and these lights on the window and all lights on the floor, they're going to become specular highlights. So they're going to end up being these little specks of light that you get here, these dots, these things, these green bits. Those come from the reflections and refractions from images like this. So it's not that bad of an idea of remembering having that around. As far as the environment goes, well, light it anywhere you like. Let me just see what I have here. Let me just see if I have an image that has a similar color. Let's say this one doesn't like it. You see, this one is a cool one to reflect because look at all these little lights that you have here, you have here. If you have a lot of them, it looks like diamonds sometimes. So how many refractions you get. That's cool, that's cool. That's an spherical map, okay, taken on a light probe, which is a chrome sphere, photographed from all angles. So you end up with that. You need to read a little bit about HDR and all those things, and see if you like it. This is cool. It's a bit too saturated, but it could be interesting. Kitchen probe. Let's say that we're gonna light it with this. I like this one. So let's use that, okay? This is going to be a, let me just find my light. Okay, so it's mapped, and this is going to be a mirror ball. So make sure that it's mapped correctly. Let's try it. And you can see that depending on the image, okay, you're going to get more light or less light depending on the format. And this is not the end of the world. I'm going to pause the render. And all you have to do is take the intensity down. Let's say to 0.1, because this image, you see, emits a lot of light. A lot still. No big deal. 0.01. It's a dark environment. The cool thing about using an image is you see how it changes right away, how natural it starts to look. You get different tones, you get shadows in the right areas. I think this is very, very interesting. So I like it, so that's cool. It could be too bright for what we're going to be doing. Thinking that this environment is pretty dark. I'm not trying to go for the same color. I'm just trying to teach you how to, get interesting lighting, how to use HDR images. If you want to go for purples and blues, then you go find, an image like that. I'm saying that this could be a little bit on the bright side of it. Like, still lower it a little bit more. Let's try again. Okay, I like it. This is more in terms of what I want. Man, I'm living in Mexico City in a busy area, and I don't know how you cannot hear it, but the people down the traffic is insane, man. It's just honking their horn for no reason. They're crazy in here. I hope it doesn't come through the microphone. But if it does, I apologize. I don't know why. There's something happening at my street downstairs. And I live on the 10th floor on a building that is covered with glass. It should be pretty soundproof, but god damn it. All right, cool. The render is done. I like it. Interesting lighting, different changes of color. There's blues. I think it's gonna be interesting. If you want, you can incorporate both. And now let's see what it does. This might take a little bit longer because the sphere. Remember that it's refracting and it's reflecting. So if I start to notice that this is gonna take too long, then I'll pause the video and wait for the render to finish. But anyway, you start seeing here that it's starting to come through. We're gonna have to dial up and down the values on the shader itself for the sphere, and also the intensity of the light. You can see that it's a really bright spot right here, so we need to figure that out as well. Okay, I'm gonna pause it. It's working. Both things are together. This thing is too bright, so I'm gonna grab the light for the sphere and I'm gonna do a couple of changes. I'm gonna make sure that this is also a spherical map. We can try just this portion. Remember that you can just describe regions to render. So keep your test renders, which we're going to do right now, keep them low resolution, low detail, okay, at first. You're going to be doing many samples of this. Okay, so right now the sphere, okay, is reflecting, which is fine. It's too bright, so I'm going to lower the intensity. And this is going to begin to look cool once we deform it. I think I'm just doing this pre-flight check. Think of it that we haven't even gotten to the effects parts yet. I'm doing this first. You get everything settled in place and the lights working. It's cheaper to do it this way than to do it once it's deformed. Once it's deformed, you're gonna get just really interesting bounces of light in and out the sphere. All right, so this is cool. Yep, I think it's working fine. So for now, I'm gonna just leave it at this. I'll deal with the image later. I think at the moment it's okay. You can see that it's reflecting. I have a bright spot that I can change later, so it doesn't matter. I get my environment working. I think it's fine. Okay, so I'm happy with what I have. I can begin now doing the effects. So I'm gonna save it and be done with it. It's up to you, okay? You could save. I usually like to have two different scenes. So I will have lesson 13 light, and this is my lighting scene. I'm not going to bring dynamics in here. Okay, and I'm going to save it again as lesson 13. And this is my workflow in every studio that I work. Sim. I have two different scenes, you see? I get my simulation scenes that go in they go on a different path and they have versions and everything. And they're just for simulation. I don't care about lighting, and I clean them up not to have anything that bothers me as far as it slows my scene down for simulation. Those will have the suffix sim, and they will have versions. And then I have my lighting scenes, and the lighting scenes are the opposite. They don't have anything in dynamics that will make my render slower. I think it's a nice workflow. Don't keep everything in one scene. Lighting can break your scene, and effects can break your scene. So if you combine the two risks, then you're going into very dangerous areas of working in 3D that you don't want to be. So keep them separated, like the song says. So I'm in my simulation scene. On my simulation scene, I don't need the stadium, and I don't need the lights. I could keep the sphere, the light for the sphere if I want to test a render, but I don't really think it's that important. I don't know. I mean, at least it's not visible. So I'm gonna get my stadium and hide it. If I notice that my scene starts to become a bit odd, then I'll delete it. The sky dome for the set, I don't need it visible. And this one, I'll put it on a layer in case I need it for something, for some test render or something. I'm going to create a layer from selected, and this is going to be my sphere sun, for example. Okay, perfect. So I'm also going to hide it. Camera 1 doesn't matter for now, and work on perspective to be more comfortable. Well, Okay, there we go. If this shader is annoying you, then you can also change it to something else. So you can probably take a existing material, let's say number 2, and there we go. Okay, cool. Save my simulation scene. Make a soft body out of this, which is easy. We've done it before. Duplicate my copy soft. That's what I want. And I go weight of 0.5. Why not? Hit create. Very simple stuff. Grab my particles, and right away I know I'm going to need a spring. Wireframe, walk length of 2. Default setting for me. Hit create, and there they are. You know what to do. As soon as they show up, hide them. Save as often as possible. And I get that. And also, I'm going to make, for testing, a turbulence field with no attenuation, and keep it a frequency of 1 and see what it does. 1, save. It's funny because the effects part is the easiest part of that shot. Okay, I get some deformation. We need to work on this. We need to put an expression in here on the face. Let me see if I did a bit of a cheat in here. So I get my turbulence field expression down here. I'm gonna put it later in I'm gonna do a mail script for that later. I'm just gonna rename it turbulence field 2. And just because I'm lazy to type it again, I've done it in every class. So there we go. So I run my line of code. And you see I get my 3 expressions in here. This is nothing special. Basically what I did is I did it by hand. I put the expressions on the turbulence field by hand, and I copied it from here. Like we did in the other courses, on the other lessons when we talked about mail scripting. I copied it on here. So the only thing is the expression, and when I did it, the turbulence field was called turbulence field 2. So later we can do a little mail for that to make it automatic. So I'll keep that in mind for another lesson. But for now, yeah, I got my expressions in here. Basically, if you want to see them, the usual stuff that I always do. Okay, so I get that. I get some deformation. I can see some nice flow and pulsing. To be honest, the spheres on this test, on this, they don't deform that much. Not as much as I showed on my promotional material. So eventually they will end up looking like that. So we're close already. What I will do is add another turbulence field. I'm going to rename this one high frequency. I'm going to make another one. Turbulence field, there we go. And this one is going to have no attenuation as well, and it's going to have lower frequency. We're going to play with both individually now. In a minute, I'm just going to add expressions to that as well. And because you know I'm lazy, what I'll do to reuse this thing, it'll be easier to rename this field to 2, but I don't want them to have the same values. So what I'm going to do is change the Y for a Z, the Z for an X, and the X for a Y. So I have slightly different values. So I'm going to grab my expression, run it, and done. So I get this turbulence field with the expressions, and I'm going to rename it low, so I know my high and my low frequency. Because I want to test them both, I need to make sure, first of all, that the particles are free to move. So let's do a couple of changes in here. The conserve to 0.98, and the goal weight to test, let's put it to 0.25. Something soft, so this thing can deform. Right now it's going to move a lot. Okay. Okay, but it works. Again, in the process of getting to the spheres from Star Wars, we're going to come up through different stages of deformations and looks. And I see this and already think of bacteria for a medical animation project, or a sun for a, something space-like. So remember what I said. Keep those surfaces and ideas in mind as you progress towards your goal. On our testing, we don't want this kind of deformation for this particular shot, but it might work for something else. Of course, they don't look the same, but this is useful for something. Okay, so a couple more things that I need to do. This spring, I know for a fact that it's too soft. I'm going to put it to 10, dampen to 1. And I'm going to disconnect from the particles the turbulence fields and test them one at a time. So dynamic relationships. Get rid of the high frequency first, or disconnect it. And let's test the low frequency. And the low frequency already tells you that it looks pretty high frequency to me. So we can see that in this scene we're going to need, well, of course I'm using a frequency of 1, so, but I like it. As far as the magnitude is fine, so all I need to do is grab my frequency and lower it and find a sweet number. What am I looking for in this field? Well, I'm looking for these changes of shape. Do you see that this sphere is kind of like squished down and you kind of get a lump here? This one is kind of squished up. This one is squished up and it has a lump. Look for big lumps. Okay, this thing right here. Okay, so I'm looking for changes in that type of silhouette. This frequency is still too high. So I'm gonna lower it to 0.2. I like it. There we go. You can. I hope you can see it, and if not right now, you will with time and more experience. But it starts to look the same. Look, lump, weird size. It's not a sphere anymore, right? Lump, lump, lumps. There you go. All right. That's the frequency, the correct frequency for low. I like it. Beautiful. Surprisingly similar. Great. I love it. Okay. So frequency low is done. Pick your particles and disconnect the low, reconnect the high. And now with the high, what we're looking for is just fine ripples, which in this case, there are not that many. But the ripples is what breaks the reflection. That's usually the term that we use, to break the reflection. Right now on our test render, it is boring because you can see it's almost like a mirror. You can see the reflection perfectly. You can see the image you're using. And you see the reflective, actually what you can see here, to be honest with you, is the stadium reflected. But you can see all the steps. And if for people, you will see every single people's faces in here. So it's a mirror ball. It's pretty much what you use to take that HDRI image. When it starts to look beautiful, when you break that reflection, you can still see the stadium down here. And you can see people actually, if you really focus on this, or zoom in. But I don't know how to move around. No, that's not what I want. Well, I'm gonna make it bigger. You can see the people, right? You can see people sitting. Look. But it's not perfect straight lines, it's broken up. It's distorted, right? Those distortions are caused by the fine ripples. And the fine ripples are caused by the high frequency turbulence in this case. So that's what I'm looking for. I want to break those lines. Okay, that's fine. Just lower this. Let's take a look at this one, what it does. So what you want is high frequency, low magnitude. This is too much. But probably we can try a little bit more frequency just to test it, right? Just to see, even though you go for a different result, it's always worth trying numbers. So I like it. Now we can try lowering the magnitude. Okay, I think I need more frequency. I want to break them a bit more. I find these waves a bit too big. Okay, that could work. And now we combine both, low and high. I think this is one of the best representations of the importance of having low and high frequency turbulence fields in your scenes always. Beautiful. Big lumps created, big deformations created by the low frequency turbulence, fine ripples created by the high frequency turbulence. The spring is working fine, meaning that it's not giving me any pointy edges. It could use a bit more resolution, but I want to work faster for the class. I'm getting real time, actually faster than real time, double real time. This is working like a charm. Let's look through the camera. If you have your sunlight in here, you can test it. If you want your stadium to be visible, then just to get a play blast for your client, for example, that could work. Particles can go in a layer to make it look pretty. Particles, save it, add it, and hide it. And we get this, our main sphere. Looking gorgeous, looking beautiful. I'm gonna save my scene. Okay, this is perfect. So you can do a play blast here for your client. If you want to, we can try a render. And it's okay that it comes out black because I hit all the lights. Once you start getting into dynamics, you see that the render doesn't really stop right away. It's a bit more complicated for the computer to handle, so, you know, be patient. Okay, let's show the sphere sun. Let's show the sky dome sun. All right, and hit a render for it. Okay, you can see the deformations. Perfect. So as far as the sphere goes, okay, so looking at deformations. Later we'll deal with the rendering of this. A bit more, of course. But for now, I think it's looking good. It has a similar shape from the example. Look for silhouettes, okay? Don't look for refractions and reflections yet. Just look for silhouette. I think we're almost, we're pretty close to range, man. This looks great. Different feeling as far as the lighting, but as far as the whole overall deformation of the main sphere right here, I think we're right on range. So this looks good. So I'm happy with it. I can live with this. So what I will do, okay, is save my scene. And I have this one to come back to. I'm going to save a copy of it. And I'm going to call this sim export. Okay. This is going to become my exporting scene. What do you mean by exporting? Well, we could cache the particles and use that on the lighting scene, but I would never advise you to do that. What I will ask you to do is to export this as a geometry cache. Yes, there is Alembic, there are all the things, you can try them if you want to. I'm a dinosaur and an old school guy, and I like to use geometry cache. So I'm going to grab my sphere, I'm going to go to effects, I'm going to go to modeling, and I'm going to go to cache, geometry cache, and I'm going to export, okay? And this is going to be called, it's going to be put in the right place, it's going to be called the whatever. Actually, you could rename it if you want it, but I wouldn't advise you. Just leave it like that if you want, it's fine. Well, no. Let's just do it right. You just call this main sphere soft. The particles doesn't matter what they call. Just remember this name. You can copy it if you want to. Just remember that name. So this is the main sphere soft. So now we're going to go geometry cache it. Let's just save this thing before, just in case. Those are delicate things. I save a lot because I have springs. I'm going to be geometry caching things. Something could go wrong on the way, and I don't want to lose work. So geometry cache, export cache. Choose what you want. 1 file per frame is fine. I don't care. The full range of 1200 frames is too much. Let's do 20 seconds, more than enough. This is something to keep in mind and think ahead. Actually, you know what? I'm going to stick to my 1200 and I'm going to tell you why. When you have a scene like this, And this could be spheres, it could be waterfalls on Avatar. And trust me, I know what I'm talking about in that aspect. Once you have repetitive effects of this nature, explosions that are repetitive, if there's no interaction between characters and things like this, what we usually do is export the main hero sphere for a long period of time. So if the shot is 2 seconds long, it's 480 frames. I usually export 2 or 3 times longer than that on my simulation. And the reason behind it is because I'm not going to simulate all of them. I just simulate one. These are duplicates with offsets in time to look different. Offsets in time and position and scale. So it's almost like the instancer. So I'm going to do copies of this one. So in this case, I'm going to export 1200 frames of simulation, and you will see it in action soon. So I'm going to hit export. This is pretty quick. You can see that it's just blazing through it because it's a simple scene. So there we go. So it's going through. I think I can talk through this. What we're going to do once it's done, we're going to have a geometry cache that we can apply to any geometry that has the same number of vertices and the same name. So this is what we're going to do next. So it's almost done exporting. I'm going to end the class when we're done exporting this and place it on the new scene, and then the next lesson is going to take care of the ribbons and finish the lighting on that one, right? So we're close to an end, 971 frames, which is good. Because the generic simulation is based on randomness, so if we have a lot of frames, then we can have duplicates and have them begin on different ranges, different frames, and they will look different, all of them. So this is done. It completed. I'm going to save it. And this is my exporting scene. So now I'm going to go back to my lighting scene. You see the importance of having everything clean and separated? The lighting scene doesn't have any dynamics. It has a static sphere. I'm going to put the same name of the other one, main sphere soft. And now I'm going to go to cache, and I'm going to geometry cache, and I'm going to import the cache that I need. So it's called this one, and it's this one. So on frame 1, you don't see anything. But if you go forward in time, and you will have 1200 frames to choose from. No dynamics. This is very fast. It's reading a cache file, which is quick. Look, I'm getting double real time, almost. And it's simulated already. So that's what you want. You see, you don't want the complications of dynamics into a lighting scene and vice versa. And having an exporting scene is good because if something fails on the exporting process of the geometry cache, then you don't break your dynamics. Because when you do a geometry cache, sometimes you can lose, because everything is going to be reading from the geometry cache and not from the dynamics anymore. You might lose something. So I like to have simulation scenes, lighting scenes, and exporting scenes separately. I think it's a good advice. So now we can place, we can do our layout if we want it. So I can save this scene. If my lighting scene is fine, I have it. So if you want to place the other spheres, it's simple. Just duplicate it. Let me just look at my outliner to make sure that I'm doing everything correctly. Okay. So Control D to duplicate. And then all you need to do is just grab your image here and place them where you want to. So I'm going to do it as quick as possible, not to get boring. So this one goes somewhere there, and it's smaller. It would be awesome to pin this picture here, right? But let's say that, well, that's actually visible in the whole frame, right? So I'm going to be having to, oh, sorry. I'm going to scale it down a bit more, and I'm going to move it somewhere there. Make another duplicate of the original one, and that's going to become the next one down. Somewhere there, and this one's a lot smaller. Of course, they're not going to be the same. You know, they're not going to be looking. You can push probably this one back to get it in frame. Push this one back a little. Scale it down. You're not gonna get them exactly, right? At least I'm not going to. Okay, I got 2. A little one down here. Okay, let's go, and I'm gonna duplicate this one because it's already small. That one goes somewhere there, further up and smaller. Let me check the height. Okay, seems like it's a bit lower than that, but I'm gonna start going through the floor. So I'm gonna keep it there. Okay, I need more. I need another one of the same, roughly the same size down there. So duplicate that. Go in here and probably push it forward. Push it back. Done. One over there and one on the top. No problem. So I'm going to duplicate this. Scale it down. Push it back. Back. Okay. Actually, I'm going to do that one, this one, the big one. So I'm going to push it forward, there and down. Okay. All right. And the last one is a little one in the back. So I'm going to grab this, scale it down, and push it back. You see it? Okay. Okay, so roughly this is the layout that they have. All right, save this thing. And now you get them, okay, not deforming, but that's not hard at all. You can just grab one at a time, hit cache, geometry cache, import cache, select the one you want, and it's done. Then you get deformation on that one. Here, if you hit G, it will repeat the command. So it's easier. G, done, G, done. One more time. And the last one. Okay, the problem with this is that you get all of them deforming exactly the same way. So you want is offset each one of them. That's when having a long geometry cache is important. Okay, so I get my geometry cache down here for that particular one. What I'm going to do is change the start frame of the cache itself. So right now it's telling you that it's reading from frame 1 to frame 1200. So it has that. All of them begin at the same time. So what I'm going to say, well, instead of starting on frame 1, why don't you start on frame 100? And you can see that it already changed shape. Let's give ourselves some time and say that this shot is going to be 480 frames long. 20 seconds is more than enough. So there we go. So get the first one. It starts at frame 100. This one can start at frame 200. This one can start at frame 300. It doesn't have to be 100 frames of difference on each. I'm just adding 300 to 480. I still have time to play. I can have this one start at frame 400. Because 400 plus 480 is 880. I have 1200 frames. I'm covered. Okay, I'm going to have this one start at frame 500. And this one at frame 600. And this one at frame 1. So now all of them are different. In the start frame at least. Save it and done. Pick a frame. For this I'm going to have to pause the video to get a render out of this. And once the render is done, then I'll pause the lesson and we'll continue on the next one. So I'm going to do is make a little bit bigger because I'm going to be pausing it, so it's not a problem. I'm going to make a 720 render out of this. Render through the render camera. And I'm going to pause this because it's going to take a few minutes and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. The render is done. And it took 2.5 minutes to complete. It's nowhere near final settings, of course, but at least you can visualize what you have. So each sphere, you can see that has a different shape. Right, so everyone looks different. And we're fine. So this looks, okay, good enough for where we are at the moment. To keep the lessons manageable, I'm going to stop this lesson here. We're going to continue on the next one with this example. So well, with that in mind, remember to save. This being a scene that doesn't have dynamics, it's okay to save anywhere you like. But it's a good habit to save on the first. Now, if you don't want to have you can look at this sphere right here. It's starting on frame 100. I think it's fine. I don't know why it's not picking up the changes. I should have been worried here. Let me just. Okay. I made a mistake. I made a mistake. Okay, it's good that I noticed that. I did the variations. Actually, it's good to see what things, when you don't plan them, it happens. I made a mistake, and this one is correct. Because the change of the source, of the start frame, is on the source, right here. These other ones are all the same. And I noticed that when I rewind, they shouldn't have the same shape. Because when it rewinds, this one is the only one who will look like this because it begins on frame 1. So what I did is wrong. So basically, instead of putting the change like I did here, let me just go back to the cache. On the source starts, I did it on the origin start, and that's not right. So this we need to fix. So the origin, it is 100. I mean, it is 1, I'm sorry. But the source is what you need to change it to 200. So let's fix that quickly. 1 and 300. You see the difference? Okay, 1 and 400. You can have this at 500. Make sure that this begins at 1. And then at this one, just find it again. Okay. Source begins at 1, and this one begins at 600. And this for the hell of it, so it looks deformed at the beginning, we can put it to start at frame 25, for example. So we got something. Even 50. Okay. Now it's correct. So everything is fine. What we could do probably is to have another render to compare. So I'm going to say this one that is not right because these are the same. This was frame 288. I just want to make everything exactly the same. 288. Okay, so now I'm going to render this image one more time. I'm going to pause the video and show you the final product in a minute. Okay, so the render is done. It took the same amount of time. And let me save this picture, and now you have the difference in shape. You can see that this one was the one that it was correct, and the other ones just changed shape. And now you can definitely see that they're all different. This was before, it was my mistake, by not switching the time, offsetting the time correctly in the cache. This is correct. So we got it. It looks, I mean, honestly, it looks great, and I know that it will look amazing once we bump up the resolution and things like that. So I think it's fine. Right now we need to keep it in 2.5 minutes because it's we're testing still. There's no need to go higher. So we get, for the purpose of this lesson we get all the spheres in place roughly. Okay, of course, roughly, but we get something. And you can just play with all of them a little bit more. Place them in the right area, but we get them deformed. We get low frequency, high frequency. We have now a render scene that it will take geometry caches, which is perfect. So if you make any replacements to the simulation, then they will all pick them up when you export the cache again because they're already linked to it. We get the right number of spheres. We get a layout with the environment, with some lighting on the spheres. I think we're in very, very good shape. So to keep the lessons manageable as far as the uploading and downloading times, I'm going to stop right here. Next lesson, we're going to talk about then the ribbons, and we'll probably finish up the rendering of this. So with that in mind, then thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.